With SEC Media Days now over, I want to take a few minutes and look at what Coach Heupel said about the quarterback position, as well as do a quick quarterback mini preview for the Tennessee Volunteers. And the quarterback position, the quarterback situation at Tennessee is something that we've looked at pretty often on this channel, especially with some pretty, what we think, pretty in-depth breakdowns, film breakdowns of each guy in the competition and what they do well, what they bring to the table. So if you're interested in watching that, please, I'd encourage you to go back to our previous videos and check those out. But before we dive into what Coach Heupel said and do a quick quarterback preview of this team, I want to encourage you to just consider subscribing to our YouTube channel if you like any quarterback-related content. Usually it's film breakdowns, but as long as it's related to the quarterback position, it's fair game here. So let's dive into the actual content of what today's video is about. So let's look at what Coach Heupel said about the quarterback situation at SEC Media Days. Then let's take a little bit more of a deep dive into what's going on, because this is probably our last video that we'll do until there's some actual news from the quarterback situation. So we're going to be waiting until fall camp until something breaks, whether it's the reps are down to just 2 guys or whether they actually name a guy. Whatever comes first, we'll be covering and breaking down. So let's look at what Coach Heupel said. My biggest takeaway from what Coach Heupel said about the quarterback position was this kind of coach talk, a lot of competition talk, right? He goes, competition is the competition is the greatest friend any coach has, right? So he kind of expanded on that, talked about competition. They're all kind of in the midst of it, and whoever will earn those reps will kind of, whoever earns the right to get reps will get reps. Whoever doesn't will get less reps. That's kind of what he said. He also went on to talk about Joe Milton a little bit. Quote, Joe has a unique skill set, strong arm, accurate passer, end quote. He also talked about Joe being able to spread the ball from sideline to sideline and vertically, very bright, and picked up what they've done really well. So Joe Milton was the only quarterback in this competition that wasn't at Tennessee for spring practice. So he's kind of playing catch up, if you will, but doesn't mean that he doesn't have a shot. He's probably one of the favorites to win this, actually. So I think the biggest thing we know, the biggest thing that Coach Heupel said was they'll have a starter before kickoff, right? Obviously, duh. So I think we're all just waiting to see what happens. I think we have a few ideas of who's going to be the guy, but before we talk about who we think will be the guy, let's look at each candidate real quick. We'll go with the guys at Tennessee first and the 2 transfers. So Harrison Bailey did some good things last year, had a really good spring game. Now, it's a spring game, take it with a grain of salt, but still had a very good spring game. So last year in his limited time playing, he had 68 attempts, 4 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. His completion percentage was right at 70.6, and his yards per attempt were 8.5, which is good. So he was pushing the ball downfield, so that will be able to fit well in Josh Heupel's offense. Next is Brian Maurer. He only had 6 attempts last year in 2020, but in 2019 he had 75 attempts, so had some playing time. His completion percentage was 46. He had 4 total touchdowns and 5 interceptions. His yards per attempt were 7.2. Not bad, but I think with this offense, those yards per attempt, if he was the guy, would come up, and you saw him do some good things in the spring game as well. Hendon Hooker, the transfer from Virginia Tech, who was a starter the past 2 years off and on, depending on different things, but started the majority of the games for Virginia Tech the past 2 years. Experienced guy, is able to push the ball downfield, and a good athlete. So he doesn't necessarily fit that offense, so to speak, but I think he's a good enough player that you make that offense fit around him, and you use his running game to the advantage of Tennessee. Let's look at his numbers real quick from Virginia Tech. Over 2,800 yards passing, over 1,000 yards rushing, 37 total touchdowns, only 7 interceptions, which is kind of my biggest takeaway. And the fact that he only had 7 interceptions and his yards per attempt were 9.3, so very high. So push the ball downfield, able to run and take care of the ball. I think that's a lot of good ingredients for a starting quarterback. His completion percentage was 63, so pretty accurate as well. And even though his kind of pedestrian numbers for Hendon Hooker in the spring game, who really cares the spring game, and he's able to lead them to a touchdown as well. And I think the ability for him to run and push the ball downfield and take care of the football, 3 key ingredients that you want in a starting quarterback. Next is Joe Milton, the transfer from Michigan. Again, he is the guy who did not have any reps for spring, so he's kind of playing catch-up, but he's got the strongest arm out of him, the best, just pure thrower, can, as Coach Heupel said, can throw it from sideline to sideline and vertical. And so in he probably, I don't know the exact number of games he started in Michigan, that 5-ish range, give or take, last year. He had 5 total touchdowns, 4 interceptions, 7.9 yards per attempt, so was pushed the ball downfield. Completion percentage was only at 56 and had a little over 1,000 yards passing. So it was kind of up and down, but I think he'll fit Heupel's offense a lot better than what he did in Michigan's. And some people may view him as a favorite because he's the best, probably pure passer as far as like arm strength goes. And Heupel's, yes, it helps to have a strong arm, but in Heupel's offense, you don't necessarily need a strong arm. You can push the ball downfield, take what the defense gives you without having a strong arm, but it for sure definitely does help to make every throw. So those those are the 4 guys in competition. We anticipate that within the first week or so that the reps kind of get directed towards one guy. I bet Heupel already has a kind of indication and probably already has a feeling towards who will probably be the number 1, number 2 guys. But again, we don't necessarily know. I wouldn't be surprised if it's Hendon Hooker. I like Hooker a lot. He's shown he can be a quality quarterback, and I think he can fit in the system. I think they can kind of make some adjustments and use his skill set well because he can push the ball downfield and like the fact that he can run. But again, each guy has shown some success in the past, right? And then so I think they're in a good situation. It's just a matter of, okay, when is the right time to cut reps for people? When is the right time to give guys more reps? I think the earlier the better if you have a good indication. So we'll see. That's the quick kind of quarterback mini preview for Tennessee, and I want to talk briefly about what he said at what Coach Heupel said at the media days. But I want to hear from you. What do you think the situation is moving forward? Do you have a favorite? When do you think they'll start kind of separating themselves, and when do you think they should start having kind of selected reps to be for the kind of top few guys and whatnot? Any information for the quarterback, let us know in the comments below, and we'll see you next time on our next quarterback related video.